So when I was deciding what to talk about today, I had a couple of different things in mind. One was I did two brain blasts of Nova. At least that's the working title right now for the reframed frame. So we did two brain blasts of that yesterday, and felt really good about it. Feel really good about where it's going. Going to get a brew on it though. Gonna not jump right into trying to fix the whole thing right now. I wanna sit on it for just a little bit longer, just so that I feel good about that. And so I wanted to talk about something else. And the other big reason I didn't want to jump into doing Nova mechanical work is that I might not be able to do another design stream and really design anything for another week from today. I might be able to do something this weekend, but my partner and I are going to a secluded cabin. We have spring break, and so we're going to just get away from everything for a few days next week. And so as a result, I'm going to be out of pocket. I'm not going to be around. And ideally, I'm shutting my brain off and not thinking about design for 4 days. That would be great if I could do that. So I thought itch funding is kind of on the brain because a lot of people are talking about itch funding going on right now. I think itch funding is a really cool idea. And there's sort of two projects that maybe fit itch funding for me, but they're just the other theme that links these two projects is they are collaborative works. So I just made a poll earlier this morning to see what people were more interested in hearing about, at least immediately right now. And I asked about Slayers Almanac and the Corvid Court Aviary. The Almanac is something that I've been a lot more vocal about. I've been talking about that one a lot more. So I think just people in general knew more about what that would be. The aviary is something that I've really only mentioned a couple times. I've talked to a few people about it, so that's probably a bit more of a question mark. It was leading for the longest time, but then the Slayers wave came in at the end and won. So we're going to talk about the Slayers Almanac, which is good because that's definitely going to happen before the aviary anyway, I think, based off of my understanding of time. So that should make sense. So we're gonna talk about this. We're gonna talk about the Slayers Almanac today. Which, what is the Almanac? It's something that I pitched in January, I think. I put this pitch out in January. What it is it's a travel guide. Actually, I'll come back to this pitch here in a second. I should just talk about what the Almanac is, just in case you don't know what it is. So here's the basic premise. It's a collaborative book, meaning I'm not writing most of it. It's mostly going to be written by other people. It is going to be 8 to 10 districts of the city, which is the setting of Slayers. And these districts are going to be, I want you to think about it as sort of like a travel guide for these districts. Thing to note here is it is not mechanical. And I think that's something that I feel is definitely the decision I want to make right now. Maybe I'll backtrack on that. But the premise is that the Almanac is not going to be filled with a bunch of rules, meaning it's not going to have new monster stat blocks, and it's not going to have mechanical rules for moving around in the environment and everything like that. Because I like setting books. I think setting books can be cool, and I just don't want to deal with that. And I don't want the writers to all have to deal with that too. I know one of the cool things about writing things about Slayers, writing Slayers stuff is fun from a rules perspective. So, I'm not closed off to the idea about it being no mechanics or anything like that. But what is it then? What is in a district? A district is going to be I think it's going to be 4 pages. You're going to get a hex map. I'll talk about that in a second. You're going to get a general description. And then you're going to get a 2-page spread of travel guide. And that's going to be stuff like, here's the architecture, the food, the culture, the dialects, the social norms, things you should know before you come here and try and hunt a monster. Like, what should the Slayers be aware of? Because each district in the city is a microcosm. They are on their own separate things. So you get a hex map page, a general description page, and then 2 pages that are going to have some information in the space of, like, here's what you need to know. If you want to go walking through this place, this is what you need to know. Hey, Garm, how's it going? Good to see ya. Thanks for the follow. So these are the things that you need to know, and so it's structured so that the authors who are going to write for this know what they need to write, but they can focus on the things that are maybe most interesting or important to them. You know, the things that are in the maybe category of stuff that could be included, you could, if you wanted to, include like NPCs or factions or rumors, right? Because if you look at the original Slayers, actually, let me go grab 2 books real quick. I'm going to go grab 2 books because I think it'll help. Hello. How are you? You doing well? Good. Okay. Yes. Landmarks? Yes. People of influence? Probably. Alleyways? You know, if that's super important to your district, then you should put it in there. What I should put here is a big old star on this because it might not be 8 to 10 based off of what we're going to talk about today with itch funding. Okay, so it could be these sorts of things. It could be like a new monster stat block. If you really want to introduce something that is unique to this district, you're like, this is the monster that people hunt or the thing that is dealt with here, then, you know, I don't want to yuck anybody's yum. If they want to do that, they can. Unless they're the only district that does mechanical stuff. And then we run into, like, we should have some form of consistency across what people are getting. It's okay. It was just my coffee. It's okay. She's furious. She's furious at me this morning. Otherwise, other maybe stuff. You know, like a new class could be the thing. So here's what I wanted to go grab. I wanted to grab Dust and I wanted to grab Slayers itself because I think they're very helpful. In previous Slayers, like the actual book, like there's Slayers Row, which is 1 page. It's just a single page. That's all you get for this district, which has a short description. It has key locations and some rumors. And then I had guests write some other pages, and they did things like locations, factions, NPCs, and rumors. But, like, you know, previously in Slayers, it was either 1 page with, like, real terse info on locations, NPCs, and factions and rumors, or it was a whole ass zine, which is what Dust was, right? Dust was, and it is, I don't know why I'm saying, like, it still exists. Dust is, it's 40 pages, and it's all about 1 district, right? It's got the hex map in it, right? Which is something that we'll come back to here in a second. But it also had like mechanics for traveling, which, you know, I made them because it seemed like the thing to do because I made a hex map. But now I'm realizing like they probably didn't need to do that. There were different, like more fleshed out adventure hooks with factions, NPCs, and all that. And then like the new class. There was a nice new class in there and everything. So what do I want to do? Do I want to look at, do I want to go and follow one of those as a thing, or is the almanac its own thing? And I think the almanac is its own thing, and it sits somewhere between those two. It's not a page per district, but it's also not a whole book per district. I think 4 pages, then added up across a number of districts, you get what starts to look like a book. The other premise, there's 2 other premises: my writing and the printing / making of the book. So my writing is going to be minimal on this project. I don't want to write a whole lot. I might do stuff at, I'm at the start and end of the book, where I introduce the concept, and then at the end, maybe this is something that I've been considering, is maybe making some rules or guidelines for building the city. There's a little bit of that in Slayers. There's a little bit of it. There's not a lot. There's not a ton in there that says, like, here are the rules for doing it. Like most things in Slayers, there are holes. It's left with blanks so that you can figure it out as a group. So I've been thinking about maybe doing something like that, but maybe not doing a whole building thing, but like advice on travel could be just interesting. So like how to talk about transitions between districts. Because in my mind, and it's not really codified in the book, it's a really interesting space, the border between 2 districts, because the 2 districts are probably going to be very different from each other, but there's that border region. Is it truly like a harsh line where it's like you cross the street and you go from the haunted district to the colorful bazaar the moment you just cross this arbitrary line? Or is it more you see the 2 districts bleed together in a middle zone, which is its own sort of interesting place? And I think that's interesting to talk about. So that's truly all I see myself doing with this book. And why is it minimal? Because if the city is infinite, if I'm the only one writing it, oh my god, I can't type right now. It's not infinite, right? It's going to just come from my perspective about what this city should feel like. And I can come up with a bunch of different ideas all day long, but it's not going to be very good, right? I mean, it could be good. It's just not going to be diverse in thought and genre and everything like that. And I think that's, if the premise of the city is that it's infinite and anything could be there, then anyone should be writing for it. Which leads to like the printing / making of the book. Here's the premise. Here's the original premise. I've cut myself. It was going to be, if it was 10 districts that are 4 pages each, you've got a 40-page zine plus my stuff and some covers, which means we like hit the cap of what a zine could be. Bump it to 12 and it's perfect bound. So, if we hit 60 pages, that's how long Slayers is. So it would be the same shape and size as Slayers, the paperback version, as the Almanac. And that could be pretty cool. And I'm going to get Mike Riemann to do it. The art and layout. Now, Mike, that name hopefully is familiar. I've mentioned Mike's name a bunch because I want him to be, I think he's great. He's my best friend, but also on top of that, he's a fantastic artist and graphic designer. I want him to do more stuff in the RPG space, and I think he wants to do more stuff in the RPG space. He did Dust. So if you like the art, the layout, Mike did all of this. He did every spread. He did the layout. He did the art for the Deadeye. He did the hex map. He did all the art on these individual pages. Mike did all of this. He's very good. I'm just going to say that on its own. I think people should hire Mike Riemann to do stuff for you because he's very good. So I want to get Mike to do this. I haven't even looked over here. Garm, you've got ideas for district ideas? I'm curious, does anybody in chat, is there a district that you wish you had seen in the book? I've got this pitch thing up that I'll talk about, but I'm just curious if anybody in chat is this is my favorite type of, you could think about it as where you would want a dungeon to be, a dungeon-esque thing, if you like certain areas of urban environments that are particularly interesting to you. I'm curious what people are interested in, or what you all are interested in, because I put in a couple things that I wanted to put in, and obviously I let the people who were the backers who made districts put in whatever they wanted. But it's very limited, right? There's only 7 districts as a result. I'm just curious if folks are interested in sharing that sort of stuff. I'd be curious to know what sort of things. Subway system could be really, really cool. I think that's a really interesting idea, right? Some sort of travel system. There's a group in the book. It's one of the very few canonical things about Slayers is that there's a group called the Wanderers who are the people who ferry people around the city. And so they've created a bunch of different types of travel to accommodate for the different types of districts. Yeah, it makes you think of Heart, right? Oh my God. I mean, I'm such a sucker for Heart and Spire, obviously. I made games that are off of the Resistance system. Those games are so good, but I think you're right in that this in particular sounds like Heart because you're putting together that hex map. That was a dream that I had about this about 2.5 years ago when I first created the premise of Slayers, is that it was going to be a monthly released and supported game rather than a thing that all came in one book. And every month you'd get a new piece to the game, a new class, a new district, and the districts would come with hex tiles that you could print out and you could build your own city with time. Instead, it became a whole book, and so there's that. But I think the dream of the almanac and those tiles and everything lives in this almanac. Transport, yeah, exactly. Tunnels, forgotten lines, love all that sort of stuff. So Mike is going to do the layout for this whole thing. At least that's what he told me he wants to do this. So I'm taking him at his word. He wants to do this, and what does that mean? It means hex maps. Mike specifically wants to make maps. He wants to do, obviously, the other bits of art and, the borders, and he wants to make every district's art feel different, which is kind of like what he did in Dust. So, this spread for Hell looks different in terms of the art, the border art, than the Rock. He's put in different art than Dust Bowl. So, he wants to do something very similar to that with... I'm just looking through here. Yeah, with the Almanac. So he wants to make, and he loved making this hex map, which is technically I made this hex map and then Mike made it look nicer because I can't do that. And the hex maps will be oddly or I guess specifically shaped. So if you make a district, if one of the districts that gets into the Almanac is really just kind of a long, narrow street, then the hex map will look like a long, narrow street. If you build a district that is maze-like, then the hex map should look maze-like. If your district is has a lot to do with elevation changes, then ideally we come up with a way of showing that on the hex map, these sort of different elevated locations. And in order to pull all of this off, I would need to run a Kickstarter, right? To pay writers, I'm not just taking people's ideas. I'm going to pay them some money, the people that get selected to be in the book, and pay Mike And that's primarily where the money's going to go. And then obviously printing and shipping and everything like that. Since my effort is minimal, my cut is minimal, in my opinion. This was the basic premise of the game. So then I asked for pitches. Right? I asked for pitches. And here's the pitch thing, the pitch doc. It has 43 responses. It's still technically open. I'm going to like re-advertise this as we do get closer to me understanding what the timeline for this is, because I know I keep putting off like the timeline. The reason we haven't truly begun work on this yet is because Mike is working on a much bigger project. He's a graphic designer professionally, and so he's working on that and his own personal project that are taking up a lot of his time, and so we don't want to throw him into a project where he suddenly has to do layout and art for, 60 pages of work all of a sudden without, I'm not gonna, and he would have to do some of it ahead of time so that the Kickstarter looks good. We have to pay him for that. So we're waiting. We're waiting, is what I'm saying. Question on when am I going to choose the districts? That's a good question. I'm going to choose the districts. I might not even honestly have them all selected when the Kickstarter even launches. I will have some of them selected because I will pay Mike and I'll pay writers ahead of time so that Mike can make like 2 of the districts ahead of time so that we can show them off in the Kickstarter and say, this is what it looks like. This is what you would get. Now add 8 more districts onto this whole thing and get it printed. So I don't know. Of when it will be totally. I don't know when. I'm gonna just. I'll just leave it at that. And here's the pitch thing that I said, and I don't need to read all the whole thing, but here's the important things to note is that people are going to get paid for this, and the current pay rate is $100 per page. So each writer would get $400 to write on the project, and and what I mean by writing, and let me show you what this would look like. To show you what a page means, because these are digest-sized pages. So it's not like a full letter page of stuff. So you're actually going to have to be pretty selective in what you write. Mike took some dust pages and then he made what would look like a 4-page spread of a district. So this is the district of dust. And then there would be a general description with, this is filler text and everything right here. So Mike's going to do some art for like half the page. So boom, this is only half a page you're writing. You're not writing like a lot of text for this, but you are coming up with you're going to have to write a general description of what the map might look like and some major locations with like a one-liner thing so there's a legend. So those are the first 2 pages of the spread, and then inside you get the breakdown of like, this is what dust is like as a place. Here's some art that Mike made for it. Here's some factions maybe that you want to consider. Here's things that locals would know or need to know about this place. Exactly like the stuff that I was saying earlier. This architecture, food, culture, social norms, things you should know before you go into hunt. And everybody could do it their own way. So what is this truly? This is one like kind of full page. This is kind of 2 full pages, a half page of writing, and then, this gets translated from, I don't know, what might be half to a full page of like description of a map and the legends and the locations into this map. But you'd still get paid for 4 pages of work because it's still a 4-page spread that you would do. Even though like this is a half page and this isn't much writing, you still put 4 pages of worth of work into it. So $400 per person. And then Mike gets a huge cut, right? Like, because he's doing the art, the layout for everything. And I have no idea what that sums up to. Once you factor in taxes and Kickstarter fees and all of that stuff and how big the print is, it wouldn't be worth it for me to try and come up right now with what a Kickstarter funding goal would look like. But we know that it's at least if I do 10 districts, $400 each, that's $4,000. Wow, that slow brain today. It's a slow brain day, right, Clover? It's a slow brain day. She agrees. So yeah, at least $4,000, right? Plus Mike's cut. It's expensive to do this, but I want to pay people fairly and well for this. So that's the premise of the almanac. And I don't think too much of this is like necessarily new information. It's information that I have been saying for a little while that's been scattered all over the place. Like it's me mentioning it on Twitter in a few different places. It's me talking a little bit about it in the Discord. It's me talking. I think I maybe made a blog post about it. I don't know. I think I've stopped blogging because it seems like a dead medium or one in which I don't engage with, so I don't know why I wrote them. But now we've got it all right here. Perfect. In 29 minutes or 25 minutes or however long this has actually been going on. So there. We've got an idea of what the almanac is. Cool. But that's not a very helpful stream other than for me, for future Spencer to deal with. So that I can quickly go learn what my project is in 30 minutes. What do we have here? To be fair, though, in all likelihood, all the writers for the districts will be playing. That's true. So I've got at least 10 backers. The writers will pay themselves. It's a perfect thing. It's a perfect scheme. No, that's true. So we can count on the 10, 10 writers and Mike. Mike will also back it because I'll host it on my page, and I won't be allowed to back it. No pyramid schemes. That's a good point. All right, fine. So, excellent. So what are we doing now? Like, right now we're waiting. A big part of it is we're waiting for Mike. Oh, and here's what the other version of the layout is. I think this looks really cool as a premise, but like in print will not look as great. So you have to imagine these as spreads. So like the map is spread across the binding and you get this cool effect where there's the general description and the legend around it. These pages are the same. I think this looks really cool, but it's going to be tricky because of binding and you're going to lose stuff in the bleed and the map's not going to line up perfectly. And so, while this may look interesting in practice, it's probably not what we'll do. We will probably do it like this. Anyway, like that's not helpful to me. So what are we doing now? What can we do now about this? Well, I mean, I can continue to get pitches. And I can, review what I have and just see if there's any obvious, this has to be in there, or, wow, this is highly problematic. There's no way this is going in there. There hasn't been anything like that, but it's just important to keep in mind. But what if, instead of Kickstarter, we itch fund it? Right? Let's think about itch funding. So what is itch funding? It is funding your project entirely on itch, as the name sort of implies. Do I have Keegan's? Fuck, I don't have Keegan's thing saved. Keegan has a fantastic card for this, and I don't want to go hunting for it right now. My dog is eating in the background. I really hope you can't hear it. I can hear it so loudly. I made a little itch funding collection for myself. So these are examples of itch funding. I think Anyone Can Wear the Mask is a really fantastic. Okay, good. Is a really great example of it. I mean, I love this game in the first place. Jeff Stormer did just a killer job with this. But the idea is that you would pay for the game, and then there was a basic version of the game that was out that came up on the page. Then if more people, oh, yes, good, thank you, Hi, thank you for doing that. The card. Here's Keegan's card. That has all of the itch funding games that are up there, and like this one just came up this morning, which is awesome. So the premise is you would have a basic version of a game, you'd buy it for $15, and then as more people bought the game, more stretch goals essentially were used to fund the game, more things for the game. So, and if you set it up as an itch thing, you can set it up with you can make a sale on it, and even if you just change the price by like 1%, you can get that nice sale meter at the top of the page, which is, that looks good. You like to see the meter fill. So with more stretch goals, Jeff added more things. So like internal art, more internal art. So it's been unlocked. So art is commissioned and underway. Pre-built scenarios. There we go. Volume 1 of this thing called Cityscapes is currently being written. How cool is that? An audiobook version has been commissioned. This is a really cool idea in which like you can itch fund something. Either you have a basic version to provide already, or funding it to begin with. And we'll talk about what that looks like in a second. Love the tyranny of make numbers go up. My whole career is based off of making numbers go up, so I'm all for it. So what is the Greeblin's Journey is what I want to look at. So Greeblin's Journey is a game that Thomas put out that when you bought it, rather than like it necessarily being like a pretty much like finished version of the game, you got the playtest version, like everything that you technically needed to play the game. And then what we were doing, very much like a Kickstarter, is I need the money to make this game in the first place. And so Thomas is doing great with this, like up to almost $1,000. $1,000 is Thomas's goal. $600 already. That's awesome. And look at this. So like Thomas gives really good reasons for why it's being done this way. Part-time job, right? This can't be the full-time focus. They're in school. This is very cool and very, very important. The funds go to the person making the game, right? Right away they go, as opposed to Kickstarter where it's an all or none funding thing, and it takes a little while for the money to get there. Even if Thomas didn't make it to $1,000, $600 has been raised, which means $600 can go into this game and make it better. Unlike Kickstarter, where if the goal was $1,000 and we made it to $600, you get jack shit. You're not getting anything. And game over, right? You have nothing to use to make your game better. And look at this. Thomas has very clearly laid it out. If we make it to 50%, Thomas can still work on the game. How cool is that? Just not as much as they wanted. This is like so cool. Look at this. Look at Thomas is working on it right there. It looks very good. Like, what a great itch page. What a great idea. Love, love, love itch funding. I'm so into this idea. So, could this be the way that we do the Almanac? Has anybody else seen any other itch funding things? Does anybody else I know there's the card here, so this is very helpful. Does anybody have like a personal favorite version of itch funding that you like? Because I haven't even looked through all of these yet. And everybody kind of does it as their own thing. So this is for purely dungeon, commissioning to make dungeons. And I'm pretty sure Hypercity is every $5 more adds augments to the game. So it's not necessarily for the production of a finalized version of the game. It's now adding cool new supplementary information. If you have any to suggest, throw it in the chat, because I'm happy to go back and look at it. So what would it look like to do Slayers Almanac The itch fund. Well, what do you need? You need I need a fancy itch page, which I'm not good at. Not good at that at all. I will, again, pay Mike to do this, or pay somebody to do this. There are some people, obviously, who make great itch pages like this that I just haven't figured out yet. And I could just pay somebody to do that, right? What do you need? You need, so like in the world of getting tips, you have the concept of seed money, right? You've got a little bit of money in the can already that makes it look like people have already tipped you. And then people are more likely to tip you. Now, what is seed money equivalent? You need like a bit of game. I at least this is how I think about it. I think something needs to be there right away. I know there are definitely some folks who are thinking about doing itch funding purely as like I don't have anything to give you right now. But if you pay right now, and if I eventually get my goal, I will give you the thing. That's a huge leap of faith. I'm all for it. But for me, I want to give a taste. I want to give a sample, right? So we need a little bit of game to present to the people who might buy this. So what does a bit of game look like? I think a bit of game looks like 2 districts, and maybe like also 1 page from me about what the hell this is, right? Obviously, something to set up the premise of what the almanac is, and then 2 districts, which is ultimately comes out to it's like 9 pages, right? Plus a cover. So it's a 10-page PDF you get right away. You get that right away. You've got 2 districts worth of information, a page that describes what's going on, a nice looking cover to the whole thing, and then there's 2 things to think about. Funding goals. You can either go all or nothing sort of approach, right? Kind of like the Kickstarter approach, where I could say like, thanks for the money for these 2 districts. If we raise X amount, you will get the rest of the book. So you're gonna get nothing more until we hit a number, and then you get everything else. Or you do it sequential, which is when we hit X, you get X districts, which I think could be simplified. And I think truly what the cool thing to do here would be is every X dollars we make, we add a district. So what does that mean? We need like I said, 400 for the writer. Let's just say 400 for the spread, just so that I don't think these are the numbers. I don't think Mike wants $400 per district. He's not going to want that much, but I'm just putting it here for now, okay? None of this is finalized. 400 for the spread. So basically every $800 we make, new district comes out. That's going to make it like take fucking forever to happen. This is slow, a thing to note about this. And the incentive isn't really there compared to like if you get it on Kickstarter and you're just like, I know I'm getting a book of 10 districts right away as long as we hit this funding. Because if I do, I think one thing to consider is that this bit of game here, has to be made anyway for the Kickstarter campaign, right? I would need to make this bit of game anyway to the Kickstarter campaign to make it look good in the first place. This kind of model makes a physical copy fairly unlikely. Yes, exactly. That's the thing to note about this. It means there might not be a book. Bad, people like books. I like books. Good, can go beyond 10 writers. That's the thing, right? Like, I no longer have to have it cut off arbitrarily at 10 writers. I don't have to pick 10 right away. We could hit 10 and then we could keep funding. And then I could give 5 more writers an opportunity to be in the almanac. And then maybe compile the 10 favorites into a print. You know, that could always happen, like an omnibus sort of thing. Yes, exactly. Garm, that's so true. It's on brand. Expand infinitely, right? Go forever. Just keep going and going. I think the sequential thing is really fascinating, but a big part of it depends on how much it costs to go up to add a district, right? I would need to talk to Mike about how much he would want to be paid to do 4 pages of spreads, the map and everything. And when I add that plus the writer cut, then I have a number, right? And that number doesn't have Kickstarter fees. It doesn't have Stripe fees. It doesn't have backer kit fees and all of that stuff that goes into it. It has Itch's 1 fee, which I think is important because it's an important platform, but it's a number. I can have a number. So the idea of doing Slayers as an itch fund is interesting. And again, I think I need to note this for myself. I would need this anyway for a Kickstarter. I think a Kickstarter for Slayers Almanac would be, here's your 10-page sample right away. There's less of a bang reading it. You read 2 districts, then maybe a month later you get 2 more, then maybe 3 months later you get 2 more. The bang factor of reading 10 districts and getting inspired is lessened. That's very true, right? Like, what this looks like my fascination with what Jeremy and I have been calling live RPGs, right? Like the light live stuff that I've been doing, where I want to just make a game that just keeps evolving and being infinitely supported rather than ever taking a true form. I can't decide if that's what the Almanac should be or not. That's the big problem. I think you're absolutely right. I think that's a good point, is that it doesn't hit the same way if it's sequential, right? Because otherwise, just to have it on the page, Slayers as a Kickstarter, like the Almanac, I feel like the live RPG format was great for Light and Nova because exactly. Like those are games as a service inspired RPGs, so it only makes sense. It's okay, Clover. It's okay. You don't play with those dogs. It's okay. She's so sad. There's dogs that are out in the dog park outside, but they're like mean dogs. But she doesn't remember that. She just sees dogs and wants to go play, but they're really mean. We don't play with those dogs, Clover. They will bark at you and be mean to you. What is it as a Kickstarter? It's expensive, to be honest, because I want to pay people a good amount of money. I don't know. Like, let's just say I pay Mike $2,000 to do the whole book. $1,500 to $2,000 plus the $4,000 from everybody else means without fees, we're talking somewhere between $5,500 and $6,000 just for commissions, plus fees, printing, backer kit. Me? Should I get some cut? Maybe small cut. And then that's really hard. That's a hard sell. Now, admittedly, Slayers is my game that has the biggest base in terms of people who have the game. So it is the game that I think I could pull the most people who would be interested in continuing to to like support Slayers who want more Slayers stuff. But that's still like this number fucking terrifies me. When I was thinking about doing Light and Frame as a dual Kickstarter, it was going to be a number like that was kind of high like this, and I was like, I'll never hit it. So there's that terrifying aspect. I don't know what that was. Okay, I feel like I'm meandering here a little bit. So what have we learned from this? I know what the Almanac is. Here's the thing. Itch funding. Oh my god, what has happened here? Itch funding is interesting to me as a concept. I think it's a really cool concept that could be like, for a smaller game or a smaller project, makes a lot of sense. For this Almanac thing, which I feel like I want it to be something you can hold. Like, an Almanac is something you hold, right? It's a book that you thumb through. For it not to be that feels weird, strange, off, bad, right? And I think that's just like, that's talking this out has helped me sort of realize that. So next steps for the Almanac right now is to get Mike on a final timeline of when we can get started, to continue to collect pitches for this. I'm at 43 of them. I've gone through a good amount of them. I need to go through more. But I guess like the last thing to just ask or to consider is, oh, hello, Meg. You've come at the exact end of the stream. I'm so sorry. We're just wrapping up what we're going to be talking about here. But the premise of sort of what I've talked about of going into a district, I'm curious if folks think this is interesting, because I think this is really cool. Of the 4-page spread being general description, hex map with locations, and then 2-page of more like travel, interesting guides. Like, this is really for the GM. Like, to be honest with you, the players can thumb through this if they want, but like for the GM, if you want to throw your players into a district and if you want the tools to really make it feel like they have gone and traveled to a new microcosm of a place, ideally this book then gives you everything that you need, or a lot of what you need, to support you in making it feel like those Slayers have truly like dove headfirst into this new place. I see one love it in the chat. So the premise it has all the support I need. I just needed one person to say that it works, and then I'm good to go. 4-page format would lend itself well to the first 2 pages being player facing, and the back to yeah. That's a good point, right? Like it is sort of like generally split between player and GM facing. That's a really good point. It's interesting now that that's right. You have submitted 4 things. That's awesome. That is really, really great. If you I won't go to it because I don't want to accidentally reveal anybody's personal information, but you can see how many people have submitted, and most people are at 1, and there's one bar that's up at 4, and you're like, very good, right? This is a good point, though, about the 4 pages. They could be split between player-facing and GM-facing, and they could be framed that way as well. Excellent. Okay. So, did we design anything? No. What did we accomplish today? We got the idea of the Almanac on a page. We got it recorded, and I think, honestly, this has just been helpful to me because it has helped me. I really did think for a little bit I was going to do this. I really thought I was going to itch fund this. But I'm thinking that I don't know. I'm thinking not. I don't know. I'm horrible at making decisions about this. But the one thing I wanna kind of cap this with is that this is a collaborative project in which I'm bringing on a bunch of people to make cool stuff, and it's not the only one that I'm doing. I want to do 2 of these this year. That's what the poll was for. The other one is going to be the Corvid Court Aviary thing. Which is going to be much more free form in terms of what people can make for it. So people will be able to submit classes, whole courts, conspiracies, lore about the city, whatever they want. We'll just put a compendium of Corvid Court stuff together. Again, fully written by other people other than me, because I didn't put a whole lot in the book in terms of lore, which some people are fine with, and other people are like, there's no book here. How am I supposed to play this setting? I don't know, make it up. And I love the idea of making a book where people can do this. And if I'm going to be honest with you, the reason I like this stuff is I like the idea of getting other people to design stuff and be able to pay them and support them. It's a cool opportunity for folks who have never made anything to make something. It's kind of like a jam, but it eventually gets put into a book, right? That's the idea. I like that a lot. I think that's neat. I like that stuff a lot. Okay, I'm starting to ramble. We're not accomplishing anything at this point, so I think this is a good stopping point. This has been helpful to me, even if it hasn't been inherently helpful to you right away or highly informative. It's helpful for me to talk this out, and it gives me a perspective on what this will or might end up looking like in the few years as things. Not in the few years, in the few months, the next few months as this all comes together. What's going on? The last thing that supports with a Kickstarter is that you can time it along with a district jam. Yeah, that's the other thing. Yes. And MV was talking about this too on the Discord, about this idea of having jams that go with these things. Because, like I said, there's 43 people here. Let me write that down. It's a real good point. Can have a supporting jam. That's a really good point. Because I'm at 43 of these, right? And it'll be 44 according to Garm at the end of the night. Good, excellent. And if I do eventually have to choose 10 of these, then that sucks, right? That's 30 some people that didn't get in the book. But if there's a district jam that can go with it, then people can still make their stuff. It can still be highlighted. It can still be shown off, even if it doesn't ultimately make it into the Almanac. And if the Almanac really truly works, then you could do multiple volumes, right? You could just make another volume next year or whatever. Something to consider. Okay, I think that's good. I think we've gone on long enough. Like I said, I want these to be about an hour, and hey, we're about an hour, so I don't know if you'll see me again for a week. I might pop and do another stream this weekend, but I'm going to a cabin next week. So if you don't see me for a while, I'm getting away from it all. But otherwise, thank you all so much for stopping by, for chatting with me, for the great insight, the very cool ideas. This has been really, really helpful. I appreciate it, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. Have a great day. Have a great everything. Go be great. I'll talk to you all later. Bye.